Wow. Welcome back to the Selling Point podcast. It has been an interesting season 2, and we have come to the end. This is the final episode of season 2. And I wanted to actually close this season out with something that I believe sits just below the surface in just about every sales issue that I've talked about on this show. Now, let me start off with kind of a question for you guys to think about. What if all of your sales problems are actually one problem, all wearing different clothes? Now, let's think about that for a second. Let's think about the problems. Maybe you've got a weak pipeline. Maybe your close rate's too low. The forecast is unreliable. Sales meetings that your sales team and salespeople are having are not productive. Your CRM is a mess. Your sales team's follow-up with prospects and opportunities is inconsistent. All your sales reps seem really busy, but they're not effective. Maybe you have turnover in your sales team. And as the owner, you still feel like every meaningful deal you have to get involved in. Now, when you think about that on the surface, those all sound like separate issues. But a lot of times, they are not. A lot of the times, they are a symptom of one bigger issue. And that is a lack of real sales leadership in your organization. And that's why I wanted to end this season talking about fractional sales management. In my experience, especially when we're talking about small and mid-sized businesses, most companies do not have actual sales problems in the way that you might think about it. What they have is a sales leadership problem. They have a gap between where the business is today and the level of leadership required to create consistent sales performance. And now that gap is costly. It can be very expensive for a business owner. It shows up in things like missed revenue. It shows up as bad sales hires, inconsistent execution on the part of the sales team. It could show up as deals that just drag on and never close. It could show up in bad data and in the ways that you make decisions based on that data. It shows up in sales teams that work really hard and still don't hit the numbers. And that gap is exactly where fractional sales management can become the missing piece. Now, that phrase means a lot to me. It matters a lot because it is the reason I wrote my book, The Missing Piece. I wrote it because I kept seeing in my clients the same pattern over and over again. Business owners knew something wasn't right. They knew sales could be better. They knew revenue was not as predictable as it needed to be. They also knew that the sales team had activity, but not enough actual positive results. But they could not always identify clearly what was actually broken. So they tried to solve it one issue at a time, right? They'd sent the team or brought in sales trainers. They bought a new CRM. They hired more sales reps. They changed the compensation plan. Pushed harder for more activity out of the sales team. Got more involved themselves. And still the same frustration kept showing up. Now let's ask ourselves, why is that? Well, because most of the time they were trying to fix symptoms, and not systems. And in sales, the system is heavily influenced by the leadership. Now, let me be clear about what I mean by fractional sales management, because it is still a term a lot of people don't fully understand. Fractional sales management is not a consultant dropping off a binder and then disappearing. It's not a one-time workshop. It's not somebody giving motivational speeches to your sales team. And it is not a cheap substitute for serious leadership. It is real sales leadership delivered on a part-time basis in a way that makes sense for a growing business. Now, what that means is you get structure, you get coaching, you get accountability, you're going to get sales process, a meeting cadence, pipeline discipline, deal reviews, better forecasting, management visibility. You get leadership where leadership has been missing. Not someday, not theoretically, but practically in your business. Now that is the value. And I've seen firsthand what happens when companies operate without it. I have seen businesses invest in CRMs and then wonder why nothing improved. Because the CRM did not fail, behavior failed. Standards were not set. Stages were never clearly defined or defined at all. And accountability to the sales team or of the sales team, it never changed. I've seen owners hire another salesperson thinking more feet on the street would solve the problem, when the real issue was that nobody was coaching the existing team. Nobody was in inspecting the pipeline. And nobody had built a process the team could actually follow. I've seen businesses blame the market, blame pricing, blame the leads that they have, blame the salespeople on their sales team, and just blame timing. When the deeper issue was that the sales function was being managed casually instead of being led intentionally. Now, why would that matter? Well, fractional sales management is not about adding, more noise to your business. It's about fixing the operating system behind sales. It's about putting leadership in place before the lack of leadership costs the business even more. Now, when I say leadership, I'm not talking about somebody having authority or title. I'm talking about the actual work of leading sales. Things like defining expectations, building the sales process, running effective sales meetings, coaching your salespeople, reviewing deals in the pipeline, improving your qualification process, driving CRM discipline and hygiene, making the pipeline mean something, improving forecast accuracy, holding people accountable, helping the team think more clearly and execute more consistently. Now that is sales leadership. And when it is missing, everything downstream gets very, very shaky. That's why over the course of this season, so many of the topics I covered really point back to the same root cause. When we talk about weak qualifying, leadership matters. When we talk about poor follow-up, leadership matters. When we talk about bad forecasting, leadership matters. When we talk about unproductive sales meetings, guess what? Leadership matters. When we talk about turnover, leadership matters. When we talk about reps not using the CRM the right way, leadership matters. When we talk about owners getting pulled into every important deal, sales leadership matters. It is the common denominator in all of the problems I talked about a little earlier. And that is exactly why I believe fractional sales management is the missing piece for so many businesses. Now, let me walk you kind of through how this works in the real world. Now, when I engage with a company, the first step is not to come in with some canned answers. The first step is to understand reality. How is the team selling today? Is there an actual sales process, or is most of it living in the owner's head? Can the pipeline be trusted? Do the stages in the CRM actually mean anything? Can the forecast be believed? How are opportunities actually being qualified? How are salespeople being coached? Do they have regular one-to-ones? Are there real sales team meetings with purpose, or is it just updates and storytelling? What is living in the CRM, and how much of it is actually real? Where are deals getting stuck? What are the habits that are hurting performance? That diagnostic work matters because too many businesses rush to action before they actually understand the system they're trying to improve. Now, once the picture becomes clear, the work becomes very practical. We build or clean up a sales process. We define the stages in the CRM with real entrance and exit criteria. We improve pipeline management. We create regular cadence for sales meetings and for one-to-ones with the salespeople. We coach the team around real deals that are in the CRM, not just talk about theory. Improve qualifying so reps stop wasting time on bad opportunities. We tighten up the CRM expectations. We create accountability around next steps and follow-up and execution. You start bringing clarity where it just used to be guesswork. And over time, the entire sales function starts to feel different. It's palatable. You can see it. You can feel it. Sales meetings stop being a waste of time and start actually being productive. One-to-ones are, stop being these random conversations and they become coaching sessions. The CRM goes from being a digital junk drawer and starts becoming a management tool. The pipeline starts to tell the truth and become believable. The forecasts become grounded in reality and can be trusted. Salespeople begin thinking strategically, and the owner begins to feel less trapped inside the day-to-day sales grind. That is transformation. Not because fractional sales management is magic, because it isn't. It's not a silver bullet. It is because structure, coaching, process, and accountability work when they are applied consistently. And that brings me to another important point. FSM, fractional sales management, is not for everyone. I actually think saying that out loud makes the message even stronger, not weaker. Fractional sales management is a strong fit for companies that are serious about growth, know that sales matters, and are willing to be honest about what is not working. It is a strong fit for companies that have sales activity, but not enough consistency. It's a strong fit for owners who know they can't keep carrying the whole sales effort themselves. It's a strong fit for businesses that need real sales leadership, but are not ready for the cost or the risk or timing of a full-time VP of sales or sales manager or director of sales. It's a strong fit for companies that want to build something more durable and more scalable. Now, it is not a strong fit or a good fit for businesses that are looking for a miracle without a change. It's not a good fit for leaders who want better results but do not want better discipline. It's not a strong fit for teams that resist accountability at every turn. And believe me, I've run into them. And it certainly is not a strong fit for companies that are looking for somebody to just wave a wand and fix sales without touching behavior and process and leadership habits. That's not how this works. Fractional sales management works when the business is ready to do the real work. It works when leadership is ready to stop guessing. It works when the company is ready to build something stronger than personality-driven selling and hopeful forecasting. And that is a big part of why I wrote The Missing Piece. I wanted to give business owners and leaders a way to see what is really happening inside their sales function. Because from the outside, sales problems can just look random. You might think you have a people problem, or I've got a leads problem, or I've got a pricing problem, or maybe it's the market. And sometimes those things are absolutely real. But a lot of times the bigger problem is that nobody has built and led the sales function the right way. The book was written to explain that from start to finish. What fractional sales management is, how it works, why it matters, what the process looks like, what changes when it's done correctly. So, if this episode, if you heard this, if it resonated with you, if it triggered something with you, and you're realizing that what your business really needs is not more sales effort, but better sales leadership, then that book is a great place to start. It gives you the framework. And and if you're beyond framework, and if you're at the point where you know something has to change and you want help applying it, this is where transformative sales systems comes into play. That is the ladder. Read the book if you want to understand the model. Reach out if you want help putting it to work. Because here's what I want to leave you with as we close out season 2. If your sales team is underperforming, do not just ask what the sales reps are doing wrong. Ask what leadership is missing. If your pipeline is not where you need it to be, do not just demand more activity. Ask whether there is a real process behind the activity. If your forecast is unreliable, do not just ask for more updates. Ask whether your team is being led in a way that supports forecast accuracy. If your sales meetings are just not productive, do not schedule more of them. Ask whether they're being led with clarity and purpose. And if you keep running into one frustrating sales issue after another, do not assume you are dealing with 10 separate problems. You may be dealing with one root cause problem, wearing 10 different masks. That problem is often a lack of sales leadership. And that is why fractional sales management can change everything. It can be the missing piece that turns sales from reactive to intentional, from inconsistent to accountable, from personality driven to process driven, from unpredictable to far more reliable. That is the work. That is your opportunity. And that is the message I wanted to end this season with. I want to thank you guys for listening to the Selling Point podcast through season 2. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the conversations and comments and the time that you've spent with me this season. If this episode really struck a nerve, I would encourage you to grab a copy of The Missing Piece and spend some time thinking about what is really happening inside your sales organization. And if you already know your business needs stronger sales leadership, let's talk. I'm always open to a conversation because sales problems do not fix themselves. Leadership does. I thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you all, and I will see you again in season 3. Thanks.